So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this webinar. My name is Charlie Guthrie. I work for AIS Training and Survivex, training providers based here in the United Kingdom. This is part of a series of webinars, so we've been running them all week with the aim of briefing up you as individuals on what is coming up in 2021 in terms of projects, who the companies that are employing are. This webinar, we're midway through the week now. You can always check via our websites, survivex.com and training.aisgroup.co.uk. You can there see our other webinars. So we've got the likes of, for the wind people, we've got Wind Hoist, we've got GWO speaking, and in oil and gas terms, there's still Atlas Professionals and some others to come. So make sure to check out our website and join our other webinars. If you know you're not going to be able to make the time, it's always worth registering anyway, because by registering, we'll then send you a copy of the video afterwards. Today, we've got Halliburton, one of the world's largest oil field service providers, joining us. They employ about 55,000 people globally, and today we're welcoming three of their best employees. I think we've got Ross Lindsay, who's going to talk about who they are, the service lines that they operate in, the type of people they recruit. He's the European area account manager. And we'll also hear from Dave Morrison. So Dave Morrison is a senior recruitment specialist within Halliburton. He's going to be talking very much about how to apply and the physical job roles that are there and existing in the company at the moment. We're going to have about 20 minutes or so of an introduction to Halliburton and the work they've got. And then at the end, we'll take questions from our audience and we'll pose those to the panelists we've got today. So if you see at the bottom of your screen, there is a Q&A button. If you pop your question in there, I can see some people have already been posting questions, so pop your question there, and then in the last 5 or 10 minutes, we'll address some of those. But without further ado, I will hand you over to Ross Lindsay.
Thanks very much, Charlie. Just to double check, everybody can hear me, yeah? Good to go.
Good.
Okay, thanks for your time. Yeah, my name's Ross Lindsay. I work for Halliburton. I'm part of the Europe area business development group. I'm an account manager based in the UK, would be office in Aberdeen, but I live in Glasgow. Been with Halliburton around about 7.5 years. Prior to that, worked with Baker Hughes in the Middle East and in the UK as well. So today I'm going to give you an update on, or an overview on what Halliburton do in the Europe area, our product service lines, and the sort of strategic markets that we see our business working in at the moment. So through 2021, where is it we see our business outlook with regards to drilling and activity and other sorts of activity. So, and then the last sort of piece, David will talk about the recruitment side of the business. David works as part of our HR group, and we'll talk about that part. So without further ado, I'll try and change slides. So Halliburton, don't want to sort of preach too much on this in terms of who we are, where we are, but to give everybody more of an overview on how we are structured. So I talk about Europe. Europe ourselves, we're headquartered in the UK, and we look after UK and continental Europe. Within that, that does not include Norway. Norway is a separate area for our business. So we talk about Europe as an area itself. We're within a region of Europe, Eurasia and Sub-Saharan Africa, all rolling up through to the global organization headquartered in Houston. So from a product service lines and the type of technology, the type of skill set, the type of applications that we're involved in, there's 13 product service lines that we have. Split between two divisions effectively. So there's drilling and evaluation and completion and production. Now, quite a diverse range of product lines. I'll pick a couple for examples. My background is completion tools. So this is at the end of a drilling operation where we're installing the completion. There's lower completions, sand control, gravel packs, but also interventions. But on the other side of the business, there is, for example, production solutions with our pipeline and process services group as well, who are involved in shutdown maintenance, turnarounds. So the big projects that are coming up this year in the UK, for example, the Forties pipeline shutdown, a lot of turnarounds and shutdowns happening over the summer period. So our PPS product line actively engaged in that. Other parts of the business, as I say, diverse part. Baroid, there are drilling fluids, completion fluids product line. And on the drilling side, Sperry, there are directional drilling, measure well drilling, logging well drilling product lines. So as you can see, quite a diverse range of product lines, a range of skill sets required through the organisation. And we're set up in Europe with these product lines. So although it is global as well, we are specifically set up in Europe as well for each individual product line. I can take questions on later on specific parts of what we do in the product line. So, but to talk about in terms of like our business right now and what we've seen in 2021, obviously activity is slightly lower from 2020, just due to obviously the crash in oil prices, the downturn coupled with COVID. However, we are seeing an increase into this year, probably picking up into the second half of the year in terms of development drilling activity. But the main ones I would like to focus on today to talk about is really the mature fields side and what that really encompasses in the market. So today what we are seeing is mature fields being people, operators working on fields that are mature, they're old assets, aging assets, potentially looking towards decommissioning and plugging and abandonment. However, before that, we're seeing right now a focus on interventions. So people that are doing like the well control courses, that's probably good to hear, right? That there's a significant focus on interventions, production optimization, improving, spending their money wisely really is what the operators are looking at doing, and seeing how they can basically, rather than going drilling new wells, can they increase production or fix their aging assets? Unfortunately, with mature fields comes decommissioning. Now, decommissioning for ourselves is on the wells plug and abandonment side. So there is a significant work scope for Halliburton and service providers on the well side. And again, that is pretty buoyant, I would say, over the past 5 years in the industry, certainly in the UK, where decommissioning and plug and abandonment work continues to come ahead. We're seeing cease of production on a number of fields through UK, through Europe, where operators are finding them uneconomical, so they become decommissioning candidates. Safety cases for specific assets are now no longer valid, so the assets are being decommissioned. So certainly in the decom P&A side, significant focus on that market, a continued focus moving forward. And probably up from the past previous years over the next few years, certainly, with that reduction in oil price versus what it takes to make these assets economic. Another part would be our review of newer energy, so green energy. So you see in the industry news, a number of operators have strategies of net zero targets. Within the industry ourselves, through Europe, we see a significant advancement towards the likes of geothermal. So there are geothermal projects through Europe. Now we're talking UK specifically here, but Europe is managed out of the UK for Halliburton. So we do see geothermal projects coming out through Europe, the likes in Italy, in Holland, for example. Coupled with geothermal in terms of the newer type of energy would be carbon capture and storage. A number of operators right now talking about CCS, linked into, unfortunately, the well abandonment side, where they're decommissioning existing assets for future potential use of carbon storage. So we are seeing a number of projects happening now, happening in the future, which is going to move towards CCS and use of existing platforms. And then in terms of the more conventional types of drilling activity, exploration, appraisal, development work, yeah, I would say down on last year in terms of certainly the first quarter as a market. And I think the OGA said that we can't expect to see back to pre-2020 until sort of 2 or 3 years. But we are certainly seeing an increase in the rig count after the first half of the year. And that's both land and offshore rigs throughout Europe. So, yeah, from a market perspective, it's probably a good time to get back into the industry, There's certainly upbeat positivity for the latter part of the year anyway. And yeah, I can hand over to David to talk about maybe more on the Halliburton's HR process and how we hire.
Of course, right. Well, Ross, thank you very much for the overview of the company and the situation last year and moving forward into this year. Now, my name is David Morrison. I don't know if you see the caption that says Scott Mitchell, but I'm actually David Morrison. And I work in the recruitment team for Halliburton. Now, I have, in the last 3 months, I've seen a huge increase, a substantial increase in my workload compared to the nine months previous to that. And that's definitely a sign that the market is improving and the company is getting busier. So more opportunities and more jobs are coming through me. So for you, the candidates, the question is, how do you then apply for the jobs? What do you have to do? What do we need to see from you? So I'll take you through, I've got a brief slide here and a few step-by-step account of what I would like to see from people. So really what you have to do in the first place is you have to go to the career site, visit our career sites. And then when you go to the career site, you can register. And when you register, use an email, a personal email account, plus you set up a password. And then you go on to create a profile. And in the profile, we need information such as your location, your education, your qualifications, your tickets, your skills, if you can drive, are you up for relocation, all these kind of details. It seems kind of laborious, but please believe me, the more information you get right at the first time at this point is great, then you won't have to do that again. So it's a kind of one-stop shop for this. So you get information in there, and then what you can then do is upload your CV. So once you've done that, you're good to start searching and applying for jobs. Now, I would say when you search for jobs, you can search by location. You can search by job type. The jobs could be offshore, they could be professional jobs onshore. There might be manufacturing jobs. There's a selection of jobs to choose from, and also you can search in any location. Once you've done that search, you will then get the option to create a job alert. And I would strongly recommend that once you've done that, you create that job alert. So that will ensure that on a weekly basis, you will get job alerts from the company, letting you know if any jobs suiting your skills, matching your skills, have been released, and you can then go and look for the jobs and apply for them. And that's so. That takes us on, Ross. If you take me through to the next slide, that'd be great. Thanks, Ross. Thank you. So what you do, you find the job you're interested in, and you submit your application. And I will say again that the CV you uploaded in the previous screen, you can change your CV for every job. So if you think you've got to slightly tweak it or emphasize different skills, you can make those changes and upload a different CV. So you're not stuck with the same CV every time. And again, I say it's important that you get the CV right, because once you have submitted and you've submitted with that CV, that's what we get. That's what we receive. You can't change it. So there's no way you can undo that. So it's important to, as a candidate, and I've been a candidate myself, it's very important to put a bit of time and effort into what you're applying for, to understand what you're applying for and the process that you're getting yourself involved in. So assuming you've made the application, you've got the right CV and cover letter attached, great. That's gone across to us. You will then receive an acknowledgement email from us saying that we have received the application. So that is your kind of key, your green light to, you can kind of sit back and relax to an extent. We've got your application. It has been received by somebody like myself who's recruiting for that position. And then I will then action that application. And then if time goes by and you don't hear anything, don't panic, because sometimes these things can take a matter of a few weeks. It can be an occasion if the job is absolutely urgent and the hiring manager is crying out for somebody yesterday, then there might be a very fast turnaround to that job application. But in some other cases, it might take a matter of weeks before you hear back from us. Now, in that instance, you can then log back into your profile, and you can see the status of your application in your profile page. So that's all something good to go back and check. Although I do quite often get emails and contact phone calls from candidates looking for information, and I will help as best I can. But really, sometimes it's a waiting game, and patience is required. Big organizations like Halliburton can go slowly at times, but by the same token, they can go very fast when required. But don't worry. I mean, in summary, what I would say is, make sure you create the profile to the best of your ability. Get as much information across this in the profile pages as you possibly can. And then when you submit the application, make sure you've got the correct CV that you want attached to your application. Otherwise, we won't get the right details you want to see. And then, like I say, you get the acknowledgement that we've got your CV, we've got your application. So please then be patient. We will deal with this. We are working away, getting the applications dealt with as soon as we can, and we'll action it as soon as we can. Okay. So that's my summary of the recruitment process. I do hope that helps. I imagine there will be some questions, and we'll go down to, I think, a question and answer session, and I'm happy to help out with any questions there. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. That's really appreciated. Scott, Ross, is there anything you want to add, or else we can just jump straight into? We've got a few questions coming in here.
No, all good for me.
Yeah. It was, I mean, from my point of view, particularly Ross, what you were saying about the variety of different product lines, the scale of Halliburton really struck me, and across from, right at the start of a development well, right through to plug and abandonment and decommissioning at the end of that scale. I think also what I took from both Dave and Ross talking about some of the positivity in the market, and as a training provider, we're seeing that as well. We look at our business clients as they book more training through us in readiness for projects, and even setting up these webinars. We found that some of the businesses were almost too busy with projects going live in the short term and the medium term to do that. So I think off a very depressed year last year, where there was a lot of cancelled projects, 40s, delayed by 12 months, for instance, we're hopefully looking at a slightly more positive picture going into 2021.
I think sorry, just to add as well, I think we're seeing, certainly with obviously less people maybe that we've had in the past, the opportunities for like multi-skilling between these product lines is happening within Halliburton as well. So there's not sort of seen as silos at the moment. There are certainly opportunities for multi-skilling between product lines, because again, we're trying to find ways to make projects economical for customers. So if that means reduction of people offshore, but still with the same sort of skill set, and that's certainly been a theme as well throughout. So sorry, I should have mentioned that earlier.
Yeah. So what sort of what are the common themes? So that's a good question, actually. What are the common themes that you're seeing in terms of cross training and dual training? Because you were talking a few minutes ago about IWCS courses and the well intervention courses, and what sort of, if you're sat there with that skill set, what sort of thing are people bolting onto that to make them more attractive?
So from a well intervention perspective, or maybe even decommissioning, from the well control side, it could be things like slinger, banksman certificates, more of the platform themed operations, not really moving towards crane ops, but anything that can facilitate the sort of involvement in the overall process. So slinger, banksman is one that comes to mind. There's also things like mechanical integrity type of certifications that I do know certain individuals have, especially with well control, when we're looking at packaging, say, an operation.
Okay.
There's also, I mean, even further to the well control side, there's a whole different types. You've got the IADC as well from a drilling side, what needs to be done there, and whether that's more internal multi-skilling opportunities, which there are, of course, within Halliburton as well.
Yeah.
Great. So one of the questions that's came in from Stuart towards the start of the webinar was, how can someone they might have offshore experience, but how can they get a job maybe before they have to commit to the training? So it's a bit like a chicken and egg situation. They're wanting to get some kind of confidence that there's a job there before they spend, in some case, thousands of pounds getting the certificates and the courses to be able to apply for those. What's your best advice there, Dave?
Well, thanks for that, Charlie. I see that a lot from candidates asking me, should I get this training course prior to applying? really what are the chances of getting a job with this? And really, it's a very hard one to answer. I mean, I wouldn't advise it. I would never advise a candidate to rush off and spend thousands of pounds and say, like, if you get that, that's going to guarantee you a job, because the case is it's not going to guarantee you a job. But having said that, it is something we do pay attention to. I know, for example, let's say, so one of my product service lines, if they see candidates who are very similar, but maybe one of them already has his offshore tickets, then it might lean more heavily towards that candidate who's got the tickets. But it's not hard and fast rule. And we will, if we like somebody and we like the skills they have and we think what they can bring to the company is going to benefit the company, we will put them through those courses. We will do that for them, okay? But it's not, it would never be for me to say, get these courses and we can definitely provide you with a job offshore. That is not something that I would do in my job. And I think as a company, we would never encourage people to do that with any firm guarantee that there's a job at the end of it. No.
Okay.
I think just to supplement that, I think David would be right in saying that for anybody wishing to start a career in the offshore industry, applying for a job with the basics, the offshore survival, offshore medical, is going to stand you in pretty good stead compared to somebody who is completely green without that kind of qualifications. I agree with Dave. Going to do some bespoke courses, there's no guarantees at the end of it, but having the basics, as I say, offshore survival, offshore medical, MIST, those sort of things which enable somebody to go offshore would certainly stand you in good stead to then go and branch into a particular speciality or product line that there may be jobs available in.
Yeah, and we're seeing some of the advice coming from recruitment companies, or offhand advice saying, like you say, your BOSIET, your sea survivals, your medicals, some of the maybe emergency response courses, because what Ross was saying earlier is if you could become a bit more multi-skilled on the rig, so you're not just a drilling engineer or an assistant driller, you're able to also become part of the first aid, the fire emergency response, the heli deck team, then that just makes a rig run more efficiently.
Yeah.
Okay, Bruce asks, are there many onshore opportunities versus offshore opportunities? What's the kind of balance there?
Well,
so I think general within Halliburton, I'm thinking of our area, I think there's probably a split 60%, 40% offshore, onshore. I think I'd be right in saying that it's not quite 50-50. I think it is favoured more offshore, but that's just general rules. I guess it does depend on activity. As activity picks up, there is obviously more requirements for onshore positions, such as workshop personnel, maintenance personnel, laboratory, bulk plants, because all that preparation is increased as well. So they kind of go hand in hand. I think that the more offshore work there is, the more onshore support is required to support those operations.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair point. If I can just quickly jump in, I've seen a lot of jobs coming to me in recent weeks for offshore operators, and there's been quite a large number of them, and that's spread not just the UK, but that's spread across Europe. To really back to what Ross says about we are getting busier across Europe, so I have a lot of jobs for operators coming to me for Europe. But at the same time, I'm also dealing with jobs now for shore-based technical professionals, which are the engineers. But again, as Scott says, there's no real hard and fast rule or ratio to this, as the business requires. Let's say that, and that's why I would encourage people to keep an eye on the website and set up those job alerts.
Great. We've got probably time for maybe 2 more questions. So one of those, so I just can't see who this is from, but we're talking about limited companies. People setting themselves up as a limited company and then applying for work through that. Have you got an opinion on that? Is it a good idea to set yourself up as a limited company? I know IR32 is going to complicate that later this year anyway.
Well, I mean that is going to become a fairly complicated issue, yes. But again, I wouldn't say to advise them to rush off and set themselves up as a limited company. But that depends primarily on their skill set and the job they do. I mean, there is some seasonal activity we have, which runs throughout the year, where we need certain specific skills, and there's a lot of people out there who have set themselves up as limited companies with those skills specifically, and we do use them throughout the year. well, throughout the seasons. But again, a lot of jobs I deal with are permanent jobs within the company. And it is, I feel like I'm repeating the same thing time and time again, but it's very much what the business needs at that time. And there are certainly projects that we have every year that do require certain skill sets. And yes, to be a limited company at that time is quite a beneficial thing, yes. But not for every job you see on the website, no.
Okay, great. And probably got time for one last question. So when people apply through the website, are they applying just for the UK jobs, or are they applying for global jobs? Is it one submission for everything?
Well, no, when people search for a job, they can search by location, and the job they apply for will be very specifically, it'll be a UK Aberdeen job, or it might be a job in continental Europe, or it might be in the Middle East. They can tell from the job where it is and what it is they're applying for. When they upload their CV onto the career site, then that can be visible to everybody, all the recruiters globally. But then the jobs are much more specific than that. So they will know when you apply for a job, you're applying for a job in a specific location. Okay. But then sorry if I said one more thing. You still there?
Yep, we can still hear you, Dave.
Sorry, just one more thing I would say. When you upload your CV, and it can be found by recruiters across the globe, you will put in your profile if you're available for relocation. So then your CV can be found by somebody, and they can approach you and say, well, do you fancy a job in such and such a location? But for the most part, when you apply for jobs, the job will be in a specific place, and it will say in the job title where you're applying for. Okay.
That's great. Gents, just before we wrap up, Ross, Scott, Dave, is there anything more that you'd like to add?
No, I appreciate the time, Charlie. I think it's good to talk about the market, certainly get other people's opinion on what's going on. So no, I appreciate your time today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the only thing, Charlie, just as we've all alluded to, is you know, the last year has been pretty tough, you know, for the industry. You know, oil and gas industry is really taking a hit, but there is some light at the end of the tunnel, as Ross has touched on. You know, there is some opportunities out there. There's some work scopes that are restarting again. Obviously, a lot of companies now have got specific controls in place, so things that were deferred are starting up, even in the COVID environment that we're in. So, so yeah, hopefully, you know, we've had downturns in the past. We'll bounce back, and I'm sure that'll be the case again this time. So yeah, that market will hopefully pick up, and you know, those guys that are out there looking for, you know, special jobs and particular activities will hopefully get what they're looking for. So.
Yeah.
Brilliant, great. Well, all that's left for me to do is to thank you for your time today. For those watching, remember that this is part of a series of webinars, so we still do have webinars from Atlas Professionals, the recruitment company, GWO, the offshore wind awarding body, Windhoist, and other organisations coming. So visit our survivex.com website or our training.aisgroup.co.uk website. You can go onto the news page on there to register for others. But other than that, the gents from Halliburton, Scott, Dave, Ross, thank you very much for your time. It's been really insightful, and I'm sure everyone appreciates it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
All the best.
Bye now.